You are forced to sit down and rewatch all of human history unfold from the beginning. You can intervene at one single point of your choosing to alter the future. Where do you step in and what do you do? I intervene at the point where I am forced to watch all of human history so I don't have to waste all of my time with history. But at that point you would have already watched all of human history to get all the way back to the present. I chase the monkeys away before they approach the monolith. I tell my younger self to invest in Apple stock as early as possible. Screw you guys. I'm gonna be rich and watch the world burn again. Why not go back a bit farther and tell yourself parents to invest in everything that's gonna grow? Then tell them when to sell it for the most money. Like Bitcoin was only a couple dollars when it started and got up to I think 10k if not more. The attack on library at Alexandria. That one event pushed us back centuries. So oddly enough that might have proved useless. There actually isn't a decent record of what was lost there. And it was possible given some insights from the time that nothing really was lost there at all. Quick edit, I don't mean that a lot wasn't lost from the library in general, but rather from the typically talked about attack fires. It is certainly possible huge amounts of information were removed over time. But there's little evidence to show that the fires actually lost anything. And it was likely lost removed long before then. Slap the shit out of Andrew Wakefield as soon as the idea about writing a paper suggesting vaccinations and autism are connected came into his mind. Then slap the shit out of him again every 10 seconds. Until that idea was buried under enough fear of random time traveling strangers slapping the shit out of him that he'd never get down to writing that done. He'd instead write a new paper. Vaccines cause time travel. Thousands die by vaccinating themselves to the point of toxicity. The human race is still improved. Once in Skyrim I accidentally spent all my money on a sword I couldn't use. Slap the first fish who tried to live on land. It'd make the world a much better place. I'd guarantee that German kid a place at his dream art school. And as a result, a young Picasso is denied a spot in the school and swears revenge on all of Europe. I step in around the 1950s and drop in a few scientific papers about climate change. You're welcome. I think. Edit. Fun fact. Originally, I was going to say early industrial revolution. But changed my mind. Boy, was that stupid. I would wait until someone posted you are forced to sit down and rewatch all of human history unfold from the beginning. You can intervene at one single point of your choosing to alter the future. Where do you step in? And what do you do? On Reddit, and then I would warn the end is near. The end is near. The Roman Orphs. Because then 9/11 wouldn't have happened and then Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey wouldn't have either. I would miss MCR though. Stroke. There would be a lot of very bad things to come out of that. Would the Tsar be a good enough leader to stop Hitler's advance into Russia? It would be much easier and safer to just stop 9/11. Though if you want to stop all of Russia and Germany from killing one family, be my guest. Would be really interested in how the Bronze Age collapse played out. However, the reasons for that happening are probably so complex that it can't be prevented through a single action. Squash that bastard crawling out of the ocean. Yeah. But what about all of the modern bacteria that you bring with you on your shoes? That inevitably reshape the course of all evolution? Around the 1300. Start an ancient cult. Ride my religious text. Make my religion supreme and put things that would advance the world and technology 3000 years. I would kill myself to create a paradox. I wouldn't be able to time travel and kill myself if I was dead, but on the other hand if I wouldn't be able to time travel I wouldn't kill myself, so I would still be alive and time travel to kill myself. Sink Christopher Columbus before he gets to the West Indies. If your goal is to save the American Indians, you would be better off persuading the Vikings to stick around or to at least publish their findings. The longer the Americas went without being discovered by the old world, the greater the disparity in both technology and diseases would be. Had the Vikings maintained and expanded their settlement, Diseases would have trickled in rather than being introduced all at once. Technologies would have shared that the American Indians would be able to adapt and they would have had time to learn. It doesn't matter. No one single event is to blame for any direct outcome. Human nature is what it is, and plays out on a scale much larger than individual events. Perhaps you can stop a single bad thing from happening, but the propensity for committing those atrocities remains and will be expressed somewhere else in the historical record sooner or later. The past is best left where it was put. I'd try to find something I could alter to allow Neanderthals, or some other human species, to survive to the modern day alongside Homo sapiens. Mostly because I think it would be interesting. Can't recall the title. But I read an old book, which had a sequel, where quantum computing experiment causes a Neanderthal from a Neanderthal world swaps with a scientist on our side. It was a neat idea, and I wouldn't mind trying to find a sequel. I'd tell myself not to fart before going into the Monkey Chews pub back in the summer of 2005. I'd met this girl I liked in Camden briefly and we swapped numbers. Then arranged to go on a date. I'd not been in London long at this point, and I shat my pants really badly as I was about to enter the pub to meet my date properly for the first time. I thought it was a fart. I thought it was safe. A monkey climbs down from a tree and I run up and shout, "Get your ass back up there." The 15th of June 1859. This American shot a boar belonging to the Brits that almost resulted in full-blown out war. The Pig War. I would have made sure that happened via propaganda and assassinations using modern technology. As a result of the Pigs War not happening, San Juan Island became co-occupied by both forces. Eventually, if you trace the history of the island, it connects a Sergeant Major Kaczynski and Teresa Dombik, who would later give birth to their son Theo John Kaczynski, the Unabomber. By having the war unfold, Sergeant Major and Teresa wouldn't have met, thus removing the Unabomber and the Unabomber Manifesto from history. According to the FBI, the manifesto has gone on to inspire over 100 domestic terrorist attacks, from anti-government protests to violent school attacks. I'd probably ask to rewatch twice. Once to see what history was like, and another time to intervene. Because no doubt there's some ridiculously important shit that happened that's lost to history that may be more important than some other things. If only once. Though. I'm stopping Hitler before he gets a chance to start. My grandpa never spoke a word of what his family went through. But my bloodline survived the Holocaust, Polish and Jewish. I want to be able to prevent that suffering for my family and other Jewish families, regardless of whether I was raised Jewish or not. I'd prevent the burning of the Library of Alexandria. We lost so much knowledge. On the flip side, maybe time travelers burned the library and prevented eternal enslavement of 99% of mankind in our timeline by postponing enlightenment to the age of information when it would be accessible to the masses. I step in where the assassination for World War I is happening. I stop the assassination. No World War I. No Hitler. No World War II. That war was coming anyway. All the principal players had been gearing up for war for decades, and what's more, they expected and welcomed it. Any number of things could have sparked it off. Move the writings. The Library of Alexandria is gonna flood. Everything else I'll write down in a small notebook, like where famous rulers were buried or what was real and what was myth. When the first patient with Rona got diagnosed, tell doctors to isolate him and test everyone close to him in an attempt to prevent the pandemic from happening. I remember reading something about an ancient Greek steam engine that never took off due to lack of interest. I'd just chuck money at it and kickstart the Industrial Revolution a couple thousand years early. There was a doctor during the plague who ran a clinic. He had this theory that if everyone washed their hands and bathed, health would be better. He implemented a hand washing routine, but he screamed at anyone who forgot. People began to hate him and stopped washing their hands altogether. People didn't start washing their hands for another couple hundred years. Kill the Dutch that start the Atlantic slave trade. This isn't a BLM statement, it's just to prevent a lot of human suffering. Plus slavery sucks ass and I hate it's still prevalent in the world today. Actually, I want to start with the base of the British Empire, which was a reason of progress but also a cause of the spite due to which we don't have a singularity on Earth. Or maybe the second war between Carthage and Rome. My first reaction was thinking along the same lines as you. With the British Empire. Not sure exactly where the best place to change would be though. I mean, stop the British Empire from happening and maybe it's replaced by a Spanish or French Empire to the same extent. Stop the Titanic from departing. Then the Federal Reserve would have never been created. For me, it's stopping the assassination of Julius Caesar. The big what if is would he have been able to destroy Parthia and then turn north to destroy the Germans from the east? If anyone could do it, he'd be it. And yes, I know he was suffering from Shire and very likely would have died on campaign, but the course of history would have been massively altered. I would have to watch it and see. There is a lot of human history that is unknown to us currently. There is also a lot that is inaccurate or poorly recorded. There are a few places I would want to observe simply because I don't buy the idea that every nicely built place in the ancient world was a temple or a place of sacrifice. Maybe it was just a theater. Or a shopping area. Off the top of my head, I would want to intervene in the Dutch hunger winter. I would want to provide supply lines and push back the German army. I would intervene when my aunt refused to get a hysterectomy in the hopes of having kids, but ended up dying of cancer. The supposed time Moses or whatever character he was based on lived, I would make some bomb commandments. Thou shalt knock on wood when talking to strangers. Double quote. Thou shalt spin thrice when entering your neighbor's home. Double quote. Thou shalt mind your own f***ing business and not bother thy neighbor. Double quote. Thou shalt stone every Karen. Double quote. Double quote. And finally, the 11th commandment. Thou shalt do the dance. Double quote. I intervene in ancient Egypt and hide my smartphone in Tutankhamun's mask. Try figuring that one out, archaeologists. Reverse engineering it at the time of its discovery would also have a profound impact on history, likely accelerating technological advancements and elevating the country possessing it to a world superpower. I kill my best friend's abusive father. The rest of the world can FCK itself, but if I can spare him even a little bit of the pain he went through, then I can die happy. So maybe as soon as our ancestors begin to walk upright, I'd kill the first few. Or maybe even earlier. Perhaps when we started looking up at the sky and thinking beyond ourselves. When we became self-aware. Whatever happens in history is usually guided by inertia and economics, so making one small change will never create the change you want. Kill Hitler and Thanissipity still forms and World War II still happens, and maybe they have a better leader this time. Stop Catholicism? They shortened the Dark Ages with monasteries conserving literature and knowledge, and likewise Muslims. They have contributed more to the well-being of us all than otherwise. But you asked, so my vote for the one thing that may make a difference and be beneficial to us all and have a chance of succeeding, so it would be to stop Nicholas II from war with Japan and force him to initiate reforms to free the serfs and bring in democracy. At one point in ancient times there was a steam toy that was a ball with two arms coming out of it. Water would be put in and it would be hung over a fire. The steam would rush out of the arms spinning the ball. I feel this item and knowledge of just a judge away from figuring out steam power like 1k years early. I'd intervene there and encourage steam power to pop up way earlier than it did. Who knows how much advanced human civilization would be right now if that had happened. I'd prevent the genocide of Native Americans. And instead I'd bring them civilization and help them set their own government and see how the world would be without USA. As soon as Europeans made land, it was utterly doomed for the natives. It wasn't genocide. It was disease. Even natives such as the Inuit, who hadn't known Europeans until 84 years after the first landings, were absolutely decimated by European diseases, as they got them from other native traders that made contact. At the very beginning, before this terrible nightmare of a train wreck begins, I prevent the human race from existing. May some other life form obtain some wisdom along with intelligence. Will cripple the scientist who invented leaded gasoline and CFC before he does so. Americans started becoming dumb from all the lead their grandparents inhaled. I think I'd be too worried about changing too much. Maybe I'd try and stop the vote tampering in the Bush v. Gore election. Maybe we'd be on track for a healthy planet and universal healthcare in the US instead of just trying to go back to not being overtly racist and anti-freedom. The Battle of Stamford Bridge. I would help protect the lone Viking, allowing him to hold back the English army longer, thus allowing the Norse army to regroup and better defend themselves. Which hopefully allows the Viking Age to keep progressing, saving the culture and traditions from being destroyed. Assuming that the butterfly effect kills everyone born after the time change, you can only safely do something very recent. I would say stop the coronavirus.